Topic of today's video is these struts over here. Now let's go ahead, let's flip the boat over and I'll show you what I've been planning on doing. So now we got the boat hull upside down, okay, and these are the rear drives. So this right here is the original strut, goes right on like so, and then this little piece tightens into here, and that's the way that these struts are, okay? And then you've got this little bolt here that you would tighten down, and then you can adjust your trim up or down, and that's cool. It's functional, it works. All right, now I'm going to show you. Here's the problem. Because these units do not have any other support, they like to bend. And what I've noticed on both sides is when you measure them, or you can tighten it up, keep it firm, bend it back, whatever you want. But as you drive this boat and you go around a corner, these things, they like to move side to side. And no matter how tight you have that bushing, a lot of times they're just sitting out here like so. I mean, I'll have a 1/4 of an inch difference from the inside here to the outside here, and this one's pushed to the outside and this one over here is pushed to the outside. So what it is they're both kind of pointing this direction. They're not parallel with the hull. So this is what I want to do. I have been doing a lot of research on struts. I almost ordered the Miss Geico struts because what it is to me, it is the placement of this thing here, right? Your mounting bracket. So if we hold the two side by side, you see that the stock one is towards the front, or let's just say this is the back and then this is the front, okay? So where I actually need it to be is about right here. That's where I need it to be because the overhang on this boat is not very far. Let's go ahead and just measure this in inches. We only have about 1 3/4 inches of overhang. Now the Animal Cat, I'm sure that thing probably has some 2.5 to 3 inches of overhang, and that's really what we need. We needed enough overhang, minimum 3 inches of overhang. That's pretty much what you would need to make this work. Now, what I plan on doing, this is what I plan on doing. I'm going to take this hacksaw blade. I'm going to cut right here. I'm going to cut this whole piece off, okay? We're going to utilize the mounting bracket, and we're no longer going to be using this piece here. I'm going to be using the strut portion of these red struts, the strut support, and we're going to mount that support basically right there, but it's in the way. It needs to move over a little bit. But that's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and mount that right in line with that. That will keep the strut from moving left and right. And if we put our little Allen head, our little Allen keeper, which is here, we're going to face that out back. It'll give us the ability to trim it up and down. That's what this thing does. This moves up and down. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to use the factory hole. I'm going to cut this off, grind this off, and I'm going to move that hole out here somewhere because I feel like being here, we don't have enough support. We have too much overhang over here. So I can move it. I can move that hole about right here and get away with it. I just have to basically do a couple test fits, but so far from what I have looked at as far as test fitting is concerned, it's gonna sit somewhere right in that category. That's what it's gonna end up looking like. Okay, midway through the process, went ahead and cut 2 of the tabs off. I've got this strut here cut down. You can see how I've got that cut compared to the other. Put it in there. That's going to be my little mountain tab. I'm not sure how much I'm going to have to cut off of that, but I think I'm going to have to trim that down a little. Just not sure yet, but we're going to leave it long until we get the mounting plate mounted. And I went ahead, put tape on here, kind of spec that out. I've already put everything in place and then put the strut on and measured it to make sure that the strut was straight to where the mount and everything was corresponding and straight with it. This shot here may give you a better understanding. This is level, and see how this is kind of like sloped at a downward angle. That's what I was worried about. Alright, so got that holes drilled right there. Looks pretty good. We're going to go ahead and try and stick this in there. Let's just test fit mock up. Okay, those holes line up. Already drilled those. Alright, yeah, all 4 of them line up, I think. Now let's go ahead and pop this strut on and see if my measurements were good or not. Okay, got a little bit of tension on it. Oh, yeah, that's looking good. It's nice and straight. Okay. That looks good. Alright, and we're right in line with where that needs to be. Okay. All I gotta do now is I'll just mark that and then we'll pop us a hole in there. Cause I'm gonna say that works. That works just fine. Yes, sir. Alright, yeah. That's gonna look good, y'all. That's gonna look real good. I'm digging it. I'm digging it. Alright, it has now been 24 hours, finally back off work. The previous clip that you saw was filmed at 12:15 at night. I shouldn't have been in here working that late, but I was. That's just part of being on the, being the boat gang. So here's the strut. This is what I have made, this is what I've modified, and this is how it turned out. Okay, so I got it all tight. I think it all looks pretty good. If we look, let's go ahead. I'm just doing this like rough eyeball here. I'm gonna say that is pretty much dead nuts level. And then we can trim it to about that point there, which is absolutely plenty. Because of the angle, it doesn't allow us to move it up and down a tremendous amount. So it looks like I can go there. That's neutral. And that's probably 1 degree of upward trim, which is honestly all this boat needs. This boat, anything more than like 0.4 positive angle, this thing is just going to lift the nose and flip over anyways. So I've got to now duplicate this entirety on the other side, which won't be so bad. Now that I've actually got measurements where I can measure from here to the back of the hull and stuff like that. But I need to make this piece permanent, which means I got to mount this bracket on the inside of the hull. So that'll be next, and then I'll pop this off. And I'm going to go ahead and trace it out and scribe it and cut this one out identical. And then we'll go ahead and do the other side. Sweet. Okay, now since I've only got one hand since I have to film with the other, this is moment of truth all tightened down. I wanted to see just how close we were as far as like trueness front and back. Because the issue with these stock struts were they would always wiggle back and forth. So let's go ahead and get a measurement here. Let's just barely touch. Okay. So I've got 14.3 on the inside. I'll go here. And that's touching right there. And I got 14.6 on the outside. So that's not bad. Not bad. We're only 1/3 of a millimeter off as far as being perfectly straight with the straight edge that we have here. I'd say that's pretty good to me. Alright, well, I got it completely mounted. This side's completely done. I went ahead and I don't know if you can tell, but I put silicone around all the screws around the base to where nothing leaks. So hopefully we won't have any water coming in. Let's go ahead and flip it over. See if we can take a peek inside. So there's the mounting plate. Let's see if the camera will focus. Yeah, you can see a little bit of silicone on it, not bad. But the water test will definitely prove to see if it's dry or not. But I think that turned out pretty damn good, if I say so myself. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and try to repeat the process on this side and get it right. Beautiful. I've even mic'd it and everything. Got it spec'd on. And on this way, we are good to go. Good to go. All right. Next clip, we'll have it all finished. Okay, now this is going to be day 3. Quick fast forward. I run out of time between, you know, days, evenings, whatnot. But both struts are now complete. They look absolutely sick. And what I'm working on now, I'm just telling you, they are super duper solid. Okay, now, just kind of giving you a visual there. If anybody wants to try to make that, there's probably enough detail in here where you copy it. So, since I finished with the struts, we're going to flip the motors, the drives, to where instead of outward rotating, it's inward rotating. Now, what I'm doing now is I'm updating the capacitors. So this is how it used to be. Had the 2 capacitors. This is what they were. Okay. I actually like these. These are pretty slick how they go on. A little flimsy, but really easy to go on. All they did was take out a piece of insulation and it solders right on. So these are a little different. So what I've done, I've taken a piece of solder, I've smooshed the wires together, and I basically wrapped solder around it, and I sit here and I hold it with an alligator clip like so. I use this alligator clip and I hold the wires together to where it kind of holds that natural curve, and then I will take my soldering gun and I will heat that up slowly on one side, melting the solder into it, and it makes a perfect little connection right there for the capacitor bank to tie to. And then this is how I did it. I basically just used 2 pieces of heat shrink. I used a real small one over the connection in the middle, then I used a long one, and then I used a short one over top of it to bring it further down to keep the wires a little bit more uniform, because the wires kind of wanted to open and separate. And I used 2 of them were marine. I tried this stuff here and it just didn't have enough strength, so then I ended up using the marine style stuff, which seemed to work really well. So I just kind of wanted to show you an in-between of how I'm getting these big capacitors to tie into the system. I think it'll actually look pretty clean by the time I'm done. Swap these bolt heads out right here. See these bolt heads? So they used to be the button head style, kind of like that, but I needed it to be flat. So I went ahead in there with a drill bit and drilled it a little to where I could get it a little bit more flush. And then I just used some double-sided Gorilla Tape. Use this right here and ran a seam down it, just like on this one. This has got the Gorilla Tape on it already, and then this one will go there. It's very, very labor intensive. It took me like 45 minutes just to do one side last night. So I just kind of wanted to show you a finished product in the middle of doing it, and then one that I've never touched. And yes, I had to desolder the QS8 off of it to achieve all of this. But hopefully it turns out good. It really looks sick. Like, look at that. That is a sick look. It looks like it's got a V10 motor in it. That's bad to the bone. I've always wanted to try some really big capacitors to see what they do. All right, I'm gonna finish this up, and then I'll let you see the boat when it's all done. Well, it has been a long couple of days, long labor of love to get this thing to where it's at now, and I'm absolutely in love with it. Rear struts came out looking really dope. Put a lot of time and effort into making sure those things were perfectly straight, but only a test run will really tell the truth. Now, the real thing of beauty is those capacitors. Let me show y'all my V10 engine. That thing looks sick. Those capacitors really did a nice job. It looks like I've got, 10 carburetors sitting in the middle of that thing or something crazy. But we're going to see what happens. But See how nice and neat the wires are? They turned out really, really good. I'm very, very happy with how that turned out. But I still got to put the cables in it and make sure that the motors spin the right direction, and I have to change out the collet. So I got to put that collet over here on this side and then reverse the red one over to this side. A reverse cable will go over here and the regular drive cable will go over here, and then we'll be able to try inward rotating propellers. To throw this in there, I just got a package in today from my buddy Fred. Same dude that made Ironclad those Big B decals. And what Fred sent me was for the shrimp rigger, and it was for the Cheetah Cat. So he sent me this big bracket here, and he sent me this bracket here. The reason for the brackets mainly was for this hinge point right here. I had ordered this for the Speedmaster in order to run the bigger 40 series blades, because if you remember, I've got a 40 series blade on this thing and I've got a 20 series bracket, and I didn't know the difference, so I had to basically file down the blade in order to get that blade in that bracket. And I was like, well, I'll just swap the bracket out. Still don't know if I can swap the bracket out, but that'll be next. But he told me he had some hardware sitting there at his house that he wasn't using, and we kind of exchanged measurements over the phone, and it seemed like it would work. Now the blade still is too fat to fit in there, but with a little bit of massaging I can get it to go in. Not much, but I think that bracket will work. And I actually like this extension, so maybe in the near future I may just use this whole extension block and extend the rudder off the back of the boat that little distance. But that's neither here nor there, so thank you, Fred, for that. But the main reason for the package was for these turn fins. Now these turn fins are huge compared to the ones that I had made. I told him that let's make a turn fin for running straight line speeds, and let's make one for oval trim, and that's what he did. And he mocked up both of these. Now if you come over here and compare, let's compare my turn fin size to his turn fin size. This is like a joke. Look at how small mine was. I was never nowhere near that size. His is so much bigger than mine. So we'll see. We'll see how much this big giant blade does compared to my little one. Maybe it'll help the boat. Who knows? But another thing that I wanted to do, and this is what got me started on the capacitors for the Cheetah. I'm going to take apart the shrimp and I'm going to solder on this little capacitor bank to the Kraken ESC. Because the Kraken ESC doesn't have but I think 2 little capacitors on the end, or maybe just 1. So I'm going to open it up and I'm going to take this, and I think I can shove this either under the motor and solder it on, or I'm going to leave it back here in the back underneath, and I'll have it just kind of double-sided taped. That way it'll have a capacitor bank in this boat, because I've got a bigger motor coming for this thing, and it'll have to be reconfigured in slight little variations of ways. But so far the little 4480 kV is doing pretty good in that thing, so we'll save that for another video. Just wanted to show you what I've got plans for this thing. And thank you, Fred, for sending me those big giant turn fins. Those things are a lot bigger than I thought they were. A lot bigger. But this is probably a pretty long video to be a in the house video, on the shop table video. But there's a lot of labor of love went into making this catamaran work. I posted a picture of it, and somebody said that they have a problem with their rear struts bending too, and that they had the thought of doing something almost just like this. So it was cool that I went ahead and documented what I did, to where whomever my viewer is that's thinking about doing it, just wait for the maiden run. We'll see how it does. Actually, we'll see. Wait for it to crash, and that'll be the real true test. But cool. Thank y'all for watching. Make sure if you're not subscribed, smash the subscribe button. See y'all out on the water. Peace.